All right, welcome everybody to the Bird's Eye View. I'm here with Hardcase
Hello.
and Mr. Krow.
And Mr. Krow. I'm like over here doing waving.
And we're going to talk about, because the anniversary is coming up, September 11th and where we were and what did it change in our lives, if anything. So, anybody want to start?
I mean, I guess I could start because for me, it's obviously a whole different thing. Me being in the UK, I just started secondary school, which is equivalent to you guys' middle school, from what I remember. And yeah, it was quite a crazy thing. Like it wasn't that we saw anything; it was more just the word of mouth from the teachers, and then being at home and seeing stuff. And it was such a crazy thing to imagine that that would happen. Like, because I always thought like when I was older, I was like, I had this dream for a long time of going to America, and like one of the places I wanted to go to was the Twin Towers because it was sort of such a amazing thing seeing it in programs and stuff. So it was such an iconic place to go to, and yeah, it was so crazy to see and hear things that happen. You know, when you get home and you're watching the news, and it's just everywhere, and it's just crazy how it all went down. And like even for not even being in the country, like I felt like just impacted by it. Like it was just such a shocking moment and so crazy for the times. Like nothing ever that major had happened, so it was just a real like, you know, like kind of like take life in perspective kind of thing. Like whoa, like, you know. So it was crazy times for sure.
So, did it change anything for you in your life? Like, did it
Mm,
impact
I
you in such a way that you changed something, or did like the rules of life change in where you live?
I don't think much changed in the way of life for us here. I think it was more of an impact of like for me. I was just kind of thought like, wow, you know, like you kind of always think like something like that is gonna last forever. You know, like it's a huge monument. Like they've been there forever, and now they're not there. You know, so it kind of gives you that perspective of like, wow, things maybe don't last forever. You know, like and everything is finite to a point. So kind of like maybe you know like start enjoying life a little bit more and like you know don't take the things for granted and get out there and do stuff. So it definitely made me feel a bit more like wanting to enjoy my life and move forward and do things. And I think it really concreted my dream to come out to America and travel. And it still is my dream, and it's something I will accomplish one day, hopefully. So, but yeah, I think you know that's about much what it changed for me. But I'm sure it changed a lot more for Americans than it did for us Brits, for sure.
What about you, Mr. Crow?
So I was fairly young in my career. Like I just started my career. I was, I would say I was actually in my first job, so I'm a young uh, programmer at that time. And the day that it happened, when it was happening, I remember I was in a meeting. Um, I can't remember what we were talking about, but I remember there was quite a few of us there. I want to say there was about 10 of us, and someone came into the office and just they knocked on the door and they opened it and they're like, "Hey, we just want to inform you guys that they're presuming a terrorist attack going on the towers right now." And we all just kind of was like, "Okay," like it kind of at first we were just confused, like, "Okay, why are you knocking on the door and interrupting to say what?" Like, what are you saying? Like, we're just like,
Mm,
okay, like, what's going on? And it was, we kind of just kept talking a little bit, but yet you could tell all of us were like, wait, what did she just say? Like, what's happening? And so after about 10 minutes or so, we just kind of adjourned the meeting and walked back out. And at that time, I walked back to my office, and I remember sitting down at my desk, and I'm like, okay, what's going on the twin, to the towers? And I was Googling it, and all of a sudden the news is coming up. And then at that time, I think it was about a half hour later, like a lot of people around the office just were moving around, scattering. There's just a lot of movement going on. People were trying to find TVs, listening to the radio. You could hear different radio stations going on. And my wife at that time, well, same wife, but my wife, she started texting. She's like, "Hey, have you heard what's going on?" And at this time, I think we had two kids, and one of them was like my oldest boy now. He was like barely months old, pushing things, like barely. I think he might have been crawling at the time. And so she's at home, and she's like, "Have you heard what's going on? Oh my gosh, I can't believe this!" And it just like this sense of urgency all of a sudden started to sit in of like, I feel like I shouldn't be here right now. Like what's going on? Like I'm confused. Like it just that was kind of what was happening to me at the moment, and that was just that day. And how it has affected me is it's hard to think back. Like what Hardcase was saying too is like they've been something iconic for so long. I remember playing Spider-Man the game and climbing on these things and running around, and now they're not there. And going back and seeing some of the old movies where you're like, that's what they used to look like. That's what they were. And I definitely don't look at traveling the same anymore. Like airplanes, you just don't know what to think. It's definitely a distant thought in my head, but every time you go, or at least myself, I go through, and you have to go through all, taking off your shoes and doing this and that. It's this reminder of like, look, we have to trust, we have to try to neutralize everything. And it's like this was so long ago, and still I'm okay up until that point where I'm like, oh yeah, we got to go through this kind of stuff because this stuff isn't allowed anymore because of what happened way back then. And it's, I don't know, I don't want to say what do they say here, Duck? Like, we'll never forget type thing, but it's something in the back of my head. And until somebody says something, I'm like, oh yes, and everything triggers, and then I start remembering things, and it might be a little bit of a fear with a little bit of like, oh my gosh, what's next, and what do I need to do, and it's I think that's how it's changed my life. I can go through something very normal, but then when somebody says something and it reminds me just a little bit, I'm like, I remember all those feelings. I remember I don't think sadness hit me until the day after. Like it didn't set in of just how much and what had happened until my panic when I was done with work. It is like, I got things settled in my life and got back to my family to just kind of just reevaluate things and be like, okay, here's where I'm at. Here's what's doing. Here's how it's affected us. Thinking we're okay, and then waking up the next day and driving into work, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is what's it like for them? What is it like? And then I started thinking about their lives and how it's affected their families, and that's when it really started to hit and sink in, days later.
So I remember I was in an apartment with my buddy Chad, and somebody called me, and they were, I don't even remember who called me, but I was getting ready for school that year. I'd got out of the military about a year and a half before. I got out in March of 2000. And so, they're like, hey, turn on the TV. And they just hung up. And I was like, what the fuck? So I get up, turn on the TV, and I'm watching, and I'm like, oh my God. And then to watch the second plane come in and hit the other tower, it was like what the hell is going on, right? It was like, being attacked on U.S. soil is a little bit personal to me. It was like, what the hell? So I immediately was on the phone with the military, and I was like, hey, where we go? Where are we going? And they were like, well, we're not taking prior service right now. And I was like, what do you mean? Well, if you want it, we'll put you into, and I was like, yeah, bro, I'm not doing that. Like, put me back in my combat job and send me, right? And they're like, oh, we just are not taking prior service. So if it had been a year earlier, that would have been a whole different scenario for me. I would have been right back in the military. But yeah, that whole thing was very, you get deployed. I mean, I had just come back from Bosnia when I got out of the military. So my last action in the military was deployed. To come back, out process, and then go out on my merry way, it was like, I felt like I needed to be back in and go over there. And then to be told that, yeah, we're not taking prior service right now, was like, really? like all you got to do is just dress me up and send me, bro. You don't got have to go through all the training, you know. I'm like, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It was a very like personal thing to me, and I know I lost a lot of people that I knew that went over in combat situations after that. So that was kind of the start of this whole change of military stance and things. And I guess part of what bothers me now is the current situation we're in with basically not remembering the lessons of 9/11 to where they're just like, oh, we're done with that war. We're just pulled everybody out. I'm sorry if we left you there, but we just needed to pull out and all the blood, the sacrifice, and the loss of life that occurred in that 20 years to now just wash your hands of it and say, oh, we're done, and forget the reason we were there in the first place was to prevent stuff like this happening again. It's a little harder to swallow now. Like it honestly feels like September 11th to me was just a few months ago again, instead of it had got put behind me and over it. Now that stuff is dredged all back up again, and it's I very fearful that we're looking towards something similar all over again. That makes me very sad about that.
Because wasn't it with the way, same with the Twin Towers that got attacked? Wasn't it the Pentagon got attacked at the same time? Wasn't it a plane kind of crashed into it a little bit?
Right.
Something?
Well, there was actually 4 planes. One hit the first tower. One hit the second tower. One was. There's a few theories about the one that was at the Pentagon. Theories of not your conspiracy theories, because some conspiracy theories is where whatever anti-aircraft stuff at the Pentagon brought the plane down enough so it didn't land on top of the Pentagon and more of just hit the ground and then ran into the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Another theory is the people on the plane were fighting with the terrorist on the plane, and that's why it crashed before it hit the target.
Right, yeah.
That's another theory. Other theory is the guy just wasn't a very good pilot and missed. I don't know. Like, either way, there was significant damage to the Pentagon when this happened, and there was a lot of people in. Well, luckily, the area that it hit was due to renovation, so there wasn't a significant amount of people in that particular area. But there was still a significant amount of people in the Pentagon at the time. Yeah. And a lot of those people stayed on the job to do their job because this was an attack, and they were there to make sure that communications weren't disrupted, that information was still flowing to the people that needed it, so U.S. could react as necessary. So my hat's off to them for continuing to do their duty in such a dire situation with a massive loss of life all over the place. And then the 4th plane was brought down in Pennsylvania, I think it just crashed in a field.
It was just in a field or something.
And I think the theory there was the passengers retaliated and brought that plane down before it could hit something, because I don't know that they ever really found out where that plane was going. So I don't know what would have been the next target on that one.
Yeah. I've never actually heard about that one. The 4th one crashing in Pennsylvania. That's quite new to me. I never really heard of that.
Because I would have been. Because I'll tell you right now, after being in the military and stuff, and heaven forbid you try to hijack a plane I'm on with a box knife. Because that's what they had. They had box knives. They didn't have guns.
Box knives. No, it was.
Oh, right. Wow. Okay.
I'd have been like, all right, somebody give me a Bic pen, and then I've been all right, come on, bring your box knife on. I mean, this ain't happening, bro. It's your box.
Yeah.
But I don't like a lot of. There's a lot of stories and like nobody was on the plane. Nobody lived that was on the plane, so nobody knows exactly what was happening, right? But the prevailing theory is most people didn't know. Most people didn't know what was going on until the cockpit had already been secured by the terrorists.
Yeah.
And
Alright,
then
wow.
the terrorists basically kind of came back and said, "Hey, you were hijacked." And that was like kind of the prevailing theory where there wasn't a struggle or anything. It was hey, captain, can we talk to you for a second? Because there was no locked doors or anything beforehand. That wasn't
Alright, wow.
now there's major, a secure door separating the cockpit, and that wasn't the case before. These were things put in later as after lessons were learned the hard way. Not to mention on I don't know what percentage, but on a lot of flights now, well, there used to be. I don't know what the current thing is now, but there used to be an armed I forgot what they're called. An armed officer, federal officer, on the flight.
Air Marshal?
Yeah, an air
An air
marshal. That's
marshal.
right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
There used to be lots of them. Like for a long time, I thought it was like on every flight, but now I it's probably a percentage of flight, an armed air marshal. Because, and the reason I say that is because there's a lot of passengers getting duct taped by stewardess and stuff to and I don't see anything about an air marshal stepped into any of this stuff, right? So now I don't know how many air marshals there really are out there. But before, when I was flying around, I know that I've seen several of them. But now I don't know how many are on there because I would think that they would get involved in situations where an unruly passenger was having to be duct taped to a seat by a stewardess. I think that they would get up and do, but I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe they're like, oh, it's not a terrorist problem, so I'm not getting up and exposing myself. But it just seems odd. I don't know. But
very strange.
I just looked it up, and that is actually a #1 question. Are there air marshals on every flight? And the answer is there are not enough air marshals to cover every flight. So their assignments are kept secret. No one knows which passengers is the air marshal.
But I know after September 11th there was tons of them at one point.
Oh yeah.
Either that or they were just stepping on from flight to flight to flight to flight, and that's all they did all day. I don't know, but they're because I know for a fact, having seen armed folks and having seen certain people on, I know for a fact that I've seen several. So, but lately, I mean, I haven't flown lately, but because of the COVID and stuff. But when I was flying before, like it felt like maybe there wasn't as many on there now. But here's the other thing too: is when was the last time you heard an air marshal got involved in any of these airplane disputes that have happened? There's been a lot of them.
I've not heard of many actually who ever get involved.
Yeah, I can't even tell you that the last time I actually heard of an air marshal stepping into anything lately, in the last few years. But there's been a hell of a lot of incidents on airplanes getting turned around, and people getting duct taped, people getting beat up and thrown down, and passengers sitting on top of people, unruly people. Like I don't know. It just feels like we're maybe not as secure as we were. And for me, having worked in the government, like I remember right after September 11th, it was everybody was sharing information across the board, like because that was one of the breakdowns, right? Is this person knew one thing, this person knew one thing, this person knew one thing, but none of them talked to each other, so nobody knew the whole picture.
Yeah.
And then there was supposed to be this huge thing in the government where all government branches were supposed to talk to each other and provide information and stuff, and I don't see that now. I don't like we've gone back the other way where like we don't share information with anybody. So,
I've actually thought that same thing. Is it seems like a lot of the communication is a little bit scattered. It's not it's not full. If you will.
Yeah.
Nobody has the big picture.
Yeah, it's like they're almost reverting back to how it used to be. Like the panic was there when something major like that happened. It's like, oh, everyone collaborate and like
Well,
share all the information, but now it's died down. Everyone's just gone, oh, we'll just go back to our own little places and
and that
do
and
our
that,
own thing, kind of thing.
and that's
So,
really the scary thing. It's been 20
mm,
years, and I
yeah,
feel like we're already reverting back and forgetting
Hmm.
all the lessons that we learned the hard way. That people lost their lots of people lost their lives in that whole
mm,
thing, and then lots of people lost their lives after that in the action
Yep.
to make sure that that never happened again.
yeah,
Yeah.
And then now it seems like that's just been washed away, and I don't know. That's a hard pill to swallow for me personally.
yeah. It
Yeah.
must be 100%.
Um, like I don't know. So has life changed for me? Like it could have changed in a major way if it had happened a year earlier, or I'd left the military a year later, because I would have probably spent the whole full time in the military at that point instead of just my initial service agreement. Um, but I don't like to fly. I don't. I would rather drive. I don't like the whole scenario around flying. Um, I participated in the programs where people go to airports to see if the airport checkers can catch you, can
Oh yeah.
can correctly profile you and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I participated in that, and I'm not 100% pure believer in we do enough to catch everything.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for me, it's an interesting one for flying because I've never been on a plane ever in my entire life. So very interesting perspective for me because like all seeing all these things happen and different things with planes and stuff, like it does put a bit of fear in me to be like, oh, a bit worried whether I should be going on a plane or not. But I know I want to do it because it is an experience that everyone should experience at least once. But
so to ease your fears, flying is
mm,
one of the safest ways to
mm,
travel. Period.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
Hmm?
It for me, it's the whole thing wrapped around flying.
mm,
The
yeah, definitely.
the is your bag exactly under the 35 pounds, and you got to weigh it, and and then you got to get your ticket, and then you got to go through all the security things, which I actually don't mind doing, the security part of it. And then you sit away and you wait
Yeah.
around, and then they board you
Boring.
by
Yeah.
rows, but there's all these people rushing forward, and then if you just wait your turn, like there's no place to put your own bag above your seat because some asshole brought like 12 bags, and it's all like that whole thing, dude. That whole thing is just not for me. And then when you're on the plane, like, oh my god, dude, I've seen people bare
You're a
feet
sardine.
sticking their feet up
Oh
and
yeah.
like people bumping your chair, and I don't have the personality for that kind of stuff. Like I don't like don't invade my space and you're fine. You invade my space and I'm not one to just eat it for the next 4 hours of this flight and just stew about it. That's not me. And so
Mm.
yeah, I just the whole thing for me about flying is just an experience I'd rather do without. I'm not scared to fly. It's just the experience of flying for me. I just not a fan
Yeah.
of. I just not for me at all.
I had a job where we flew into a town. We'd set up a like an exhibit type thing where we just did a show, and then we'd tear down that night. And the next morning, it's like we're flying out to the next place and at 5 a.m., something like that. And so there was this time where I was traveling just every other day. We're on a plane,
Mm.
and you get tired. And I remember getting on this plane. I think we're in Chicago is where it was, and I think I was going to Minnesota or something like that, just somewhere around there. And I get on the plane. I'm excited. I sit in my seat and I'm like, oh, good. I can just sit back and go to sleep and catch some sleep, catch some Z's. And this guy sits down next to me. He's like, well, how are you doing today, sir? And I was like, I'm fine. He's like, I am so excited to fly. This is my first flight. Let me tell you all about this and how excited I am. And I'm like, please don't talk to me. I just wanted to sleep. I got an hour and a half of sleep last night. I just need a little bit more sleep. And this guy just goes off on it like, this is so cool. And then he grabs my leg a couple times like, I'm so sorry. I'm just a little nervous. And I'm like, please stop talking to me. Let me go to sleep. And I can't sleep very well on planes, but man, there was these times where there was nothing else I could do. I couldn't stay awake, but this guy kept me awake.
I remember the very first time I flew. I was about 20 years old, and I was flying from Oregon to Oklahoma for basic training.
Okay.
And
It's a long flight.
And so we're on the plane, and I'm on the window seat, and I'm like, okay, brave face on, and we're flying, and I'm like, okay, it's not. And then like we're taking, like, you can see the plane shaking, and I'm like, I thought they were maybe a little sturdier than this. I was like, okay, then, and then I was like,
these are flimsy.
and then like we come down and we land, and it was kind of like a wobbly, right? And then like the top of the engine goes right, and I was like, what the fuck, because so what it was like the engine cowling, right? The top came off, and it goes back like that. So the jet like goes up instead of back, I guess, or something like that. But it I was like, whoa, what the fuck, the guy's like, no, I was supposed to do that. I was like, okay.
I knew that. It's all right.
I was like, check, please, let me off. So now when I fly, I have a way of flying is I stay up the night before. And then
he's passed out when he gets on the plane.
Whenever the flight gets on, I get on the flight, I sit down, I put my headset down, put my hoodie up, and I'm like,
nice.
Fucking out, dude. Out.
He's got like give me my Z's, give me my sleeping pills.
People like straddling over me to get out to go to the bathroom because they can't wake me up. I'm like,
that's funny.
And to me, the other reason I do that is because it helps me with jet lag. So whenever I get to where I'm going, I'm so tired, I just go to bed at the time that I'm supposed to go to bed, and then I can just sleep.
Yeah.
And then I'm a little bit tired the next day, and then by that next night though, I'm good to go. So that's how I combat my jet lag also. But yeah, I don't like the whole experience. So I'm on the plane, I'm buckled in, I'm out.
My only thing is I hate sitting next to the wing and being by the window, because I've been by it where I see that wing and it just flaps.
Yeah, flapping around.
I don't like that. I'm like, no. That thing's gonna snap off in a moment. I don't like that.
I generally sit on the aisle. 100% of the
I think
time
if my first flight, I think I might go for a window seat. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
I'm terrified of heights and stuff, but I think it would be an experience to be able to see everything for the first time. Even though annoyingly, obviously, I sorted out my passport to be able to go traveling and start traveling, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
When I was like, oh, okay. I guess I've got to wait a couple of years now. So
yeah, I would say the best place to sit is right in front of the wing if you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
In front of the wing by the window.
Yeah, but don't sit. Like, try not to. If you want to look out, try not to sit on the wing, because then you can't see anything below. Right? You want to sit either in the back or the front. But sitting in the back,
Right,
I don't know. I seem like sitting in the back sucks, but seems like there's a lot more traffic. Is all. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm always trying to sleep, so.
The bathroom's typically in the back. Where
I remember this one time,
go.
dude. I was passed out. And apparently the two ladies on the inside had like straddled across me and got out, right? But the damn food cart from the stewardess wham right into my knee. That woke me up, dude. I was like out of a dead ass fucking passed out sleep. I was like, what the fuck happened? Because they were like, oh, you woke up. And they were laughing about it. I was like, God, dude. Remember having to stand up and hobble around for a few minutes. Like,
God damn it.
Well, wasn't going back to sleep then. I was always worried about the damn cart coming by.
Yeah, the trays on there. Like I've had to try to work on those flights before, where you're trying to type on a little laptop, and I'm like, no, I never realized that I like to spread my my arms a little bit as I type. I like to spread my wings when I type, apparently. But yeah, it's
So it used to
they're
be when
small.
I first started flying around, every single seat had a TV, or they had like a pop-down TV.
Yeah,
And then
they have
now,
TVs right in front.
now sometimes I remember being on planes that don't have them at all. They give you these little handheld tablets if you want to rent one.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
kind of how they were doing it.
Hmm.
So yeah,
I've always had
so
a TV right in front of me.
yeah, so I don't know. Got any more about September 11th or anything? Flying, traveling.
Thanks for everyone. If you're watching this, if you served in any way, including you, Duck.
Yeah,
Thanks for
definitely.
everything. But
So
that's all I got.
So on top of that is on this anniversary, 20 years. If you're struggling with stuff, make sure you talk to somebody and contact somebody. Mental health is always a huge issue and needs to be addressed. So with that coming up and with everything else going on, and then with COVID, if you're you feel like you need to talk to somebody, definitely please reach out to somebody, your neighbors, your friends,
Definitely.
the hotlines or something. Just make sure you take care of yourself.
Agreed.
100%.
With that,
Don't ever feel like you're alone in it. You're never alone. There's always somebody out there that's going to be there to help you. And you know, I I deal with mental issues myself, so I feel it. I know it 100%. So don't ever feel like you're alone on that one. Just reach out to somebody, anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. They'll be there for you.
So go ahead and leave
True.
a comment. Where were you on September 11th?
Mm.
And did that impact? And how did that impact your life? We'd like to hear those comments. Go ahead and leave a like and help us with the algorithm. But with that, we're gonna get out of here. So much love, all. We'll catch you next time.
Take
See you,
care,
everyone.
all.
Bye.